Here's the thing. There's moments in your life that make you. That set the course of who you're going to be. Sometimes they're little, subtle moments. Sometimes they're not. Bottom line is, even if you see them coming, you're not ready for the big moments. No one asks for their life to change. Not really. But it does. So what are we? Helpless? Puppets? No. The big moments are going to come. You can't help that. It's what you do afterwards that counts. That's when you find out who you are.
Have you ever faced a moment when life forced you to change and you weren't ready for it? Well, that's where this chapter of my story begins. Welcome to Dispatch Tea and Therapy. My name is Lucinda, and I'm embarking on something new, which is exciting and uncomfortable. Sharing my journey on video is, well, frankly terrifying if we're honest, but here we are. That quote you just heard, that was from Buffy the Vampire Slayer by Joss Whedon and a character named Whistler. Yes, once upon a time, Buffy was a very big part of my life, and maybe in a future episode I'll talk more about that, including the hilarious, if slightly embarrassing to me, story about the time I met David Boreanaz. And yes, I have the picture to prove it. But for now, I'd like to delve into why that particular quote resonates with me and why I chose it to start this first episode. For me, it captures those life-altering moments that catch us off guard, that we don't see coming, that we are not prepared for, that we would not have asked for, that break us down and leave us exposed and raw and vulnerable, and do ultimately help to shape, at least in part, who we become. Now, Whistler also says no one asked for their life to change, not really, and I find both truth and contradiction in that statement. While the sudden painful moments, like the loss of my mother a little over 4 years ago, were not changes I would have sought, events like that can propel a person to seek change, and it certainly did for me. A year after my mother's passing, I actively reshaped my path. I returned to school to work on my BA in psychology, which I just earned in August. Yay me. I became a supervisor where I work at 911 a year after my mom's passing. And now, a little over 4 years after my mom's passing, I'm working on my master's degree to become a clinical mental health counselor, a shift from 20 years of 911 work to becoming a mental health professional. Those are not passive reactions. They were deliberate choices to reclaim and redirect my life. I didn't want to come to the end of my life and have to say that I wanted to be different, but that I chickened out when I had the chance. And that's why this channel, Dispatch Tea and Therapy, is part of how I'm choosing to be different. I am fully stepping into the discomfort that I have lived with for the past 4 years, embracing vulnerability and trying to share the journey. For me, it's ultimately about growing, connecting, and transforming. Not just for me, but hopefully for you as well. Now, it is important for me, before we continue, to tell you, or to remind you if you don't know, that I am not an expert on mental health. I am not a counselor. I am a counselor in training. I am just starting my master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. That is a 3-year degree program, and then there's like a year and a half of additional work before I can become licensed. My expertise lies at the intersection of 911 and mental health, where I've spent over 2 decades working. This channel is as much about sharing what I've already learned as it is about exploring and learning together.
So why the hell am I doing this? And just FYI, this is your one and only heads up, which I realize is too late because I've already done it both in words and a slide, that there may be swearing on this channel. There may be tears, I'm not really sure. That's real life, right? It's messy and it's beautiful and it's complicated, just like the stories we're going to explore here. Now, vulnerability is not really my favorite thing. It is uncomfortable, but as Brene Brown has always said, and if you don't know who Brene Brown is, don't worry. If you stick with me, you'll learn all about her. Vulnerability is what allows us to have connections. And the more that I've embraced vulnerability, the more I've realized how powerful it can be. Over the years, I have opened the door to tremendous connections and grace by allowing myself to be vulnerable. And I want this place to be a place where we can talk about that, where we can talk about mental health, high stress careers, and personal growth. As I've said, with more than 2 decades in 911, I have realized how little conversation and research there is about the stressors that 911 call receivers, dispatchers, trainers, supervisors experience. We talk a lot about police and fire units and the stresses that they face, and rightly so, but the toll on 911 dispatchers, it remains largely unexplored. That's why I'm here. I want to be a voice that brings those conversations to light, to help by sharing what has helped me survive and sometimes even thrive in this field. There are specific 911 There are specific 911 stressors specific to 911 operators and call receivers and dispatchers. And one of the books that we'll talk about that talks about those is the 911 Resilient Professional, the Resilient 911 Professional, by Jim Marshall and Tracy Lorenza. This book is, like I said, one of many tools that I will reference because I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. And I'm not, like I said, a mental health professional, although I am a certified peer specialist now at the Washington State Department of Health. So I am learning still and wanting to share those tools with you. But this book outlines 9 key stressors that 911 professionals deal with every day. A lot of them you've heard, some of them you may have only briefly thought about. I won't go into them too much today. We're going to dig into them more with each familiar episode. We're going to unpack those, and we're going to talk about what it feels like if you've ever felt like the weight of this job is invisible to other people, and so that we all recognize that we are not alone. However, it's not just understanding ourselves and navigating high-stress environments. It isn't just about emotional awareness. It's also about using practical tools that will help us manage and hopefully thrive. That's why I also want to talk about 2 different types of therapeutic approaches that have personally helped me. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, and dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT. Let's start with CBT. Cognitive behavioral therapy is all about how our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors are connected. If you ever catch yourself spiraling with negative thoughts and suddenly your whole mood shifts, that's CBT in action. It helps break that cycle by identifying negative thought patterns and reframing them into something more useful. CBT is used widely for things like anxiety, depression, and stress management. It's a practical, goal-oriented, and it is backed by a ton of research. Now, DBT, on the other hand, that builds on CBT, but it takes it a step further. DBT is huge in high-stress environments like 911. It teaches 4 core skills that honestly should be required for anyone working in emergency services. And you've heard many of these. One of them, mindfulness, staying present instead of getting stuck in the what-ifs, emotion regulation, managing intense emotions so they don't manage you. That's Ted Lasso for you right there. Distress tolerance, handling crisis without making them worse, interpersonal effectiveness, communicating and maintaining relationships effectively. DBT is like a survival kit for managing stress. It teaches you how to accept where you are while still working towards change. Now, both CBT and DBT have their limitations. CBT is great for thought patterns, but sometimes doesn't go deep enough into emotions. DBT, on the other hand, requires commitment. It is not a quick fix. But both are powerful tools that I'll be talking more about in future episodes as I continue to learn more about them myself. These therapies are just part of the toolkits that we can use to help handle the demands of high-stress jobs like those in 911 dispatch. On this channel, I will share how those tools have helped me, how they might be applied or limited. I aim to explore these strategies in real time as, again, I learn more during my own training as I progress through my master's degree. This, like I said, is my way of sharing what I've learned. It's about connecting with people, telling stories, and exploring that intersection of 911 and mental health. I want us to learn together, as I've mentioned before. This is a career that forces you to manage emotions under extreme pressure. Sometimes I have succeeded and sometimes I have spectacularly failed. I want to explore those experiences so that we can talk about how we grow through what we go through. So what does that mean? Wellness Wednesday is when we're going to dig into those DBT and CBT skills I talked about. We're going to talk about tools for people in high stress jobs. We're going to talk about ways to hold ourselves accountable. And that's also part of what I want this to be for me, a way to hold myself accountable. I think that being a counselor and being a certified peer specialist, it's about modeling resilience. It's about modeling the journey, and it's about being an agent of change. This is my way of doing that, of stepping into it. You can tell with all the stumbles and fumbles here that I am not an expert at content creation either, so I hope that you will stick with my fumbles. You can only edit and re-record so many times before you have to bite the bullet and just hit record and then hit share. So I also want this to be something for people that I love, my nieces and nephews who will hopefully watch this, friends and family, something that they can look back on when I'm gone, which hopefully will not be until I'm well into my 90s. That's my current plan anyway. So what is the plan? I've rambled on a bit. I do that sometimes. Dispatch Tea and Therapy is about blending my past, my present, and my future. Dispatch obviously represents my years in 911, from call receiving to dispatch, training, and now as a supervisor. Tea symbolizes, anybody who knows me knows my deep love of tea. It is my one chosen addiction. And therapy, of course, therapy also reflects the counseling that I'm currently in and the calling that has become, the career that I'm leading myself towards, working towards. I am building a future as a licensed mental health counselor. That's the end goal for this education. Therapy was the step I took after my mom died that prepared me for the life-altering events that I then actively pursued. And it's interesting because I tried for 20 years to make 911 a calling. I tried so hard. And it's been a great career. It's been a really good career, but it has not been a calling. And mental health has become my calling. And finally, I like the wordplay, spilling the tea, as it were, on therapy, on dispatch, on my life. These words sort of reflect where I've been, where I am, and where I'm going. They are survival, comfort, and healing. So this is my plan. I have weekly themes. First is going to be Wellness Wednesday. This doesn't really officially count because I'm not really talking about a specific topic. I'm just introducing my channel. But we will be exploring mental health topics, self-care strategies, and personal reflections. On Thursday, I'm bringing back Poetry Thursday. A friend and coworker and I used to do that on Facebook. I think it's a great tool for mental health as well, so we'll be doing that on Thursdays. Friday is going to be No Filter Friday, where we embrace the dark side, where we have cookies. I have something kind of unique and kind of separate on Saturdays that I don't want to talk about yet. I'll talk about it more as we get closer to Saturday. And then we start the new week I'm skipping Sunday because everybody deserves a day of rest. Monday will be what I'm calling Merry Moon Day. And that is a day where we talk about joy. There's also Tuesday, Storytime Tuesdays. So you can see I've got quite a packed schedule headed up for us. Each day is going to be something a little bit different. And sometimes I'm going to take deeper dives onto those topics, and I will post that on my companion blog, which is also dispatchteaandtherapy.com. One thing I do want to say before we close out here is I want to talk a little bit about boundaries and transparency. There are some stories that I want to talk about, but that I will not share while I still work for 911. And even when I do, it will not be done as a gossip channel or to air grievances or talk about people I didn't like or didn't get along with, because I usually get along with pretty much everybody anyway. It is about digging into deeper stories that I don't feel comfortable sharing while I'm still there. Also, I want to make clear that no stories will be shared, no names will be shared without permission, and any sensitive situations are going to be handled carefully. It is my priority to honor the trust and humanity of the people behind these stories every time. But there's a lot to talk about. From the funny, I almost said the sunny, from the funny and the absurd to the profoundly moving and the inspiring. Now, when I look ahead, I recognize I am already asking this channel and blog to be many things, a way to share, to connect, document, explore. Maybe it won't last long. Maybe it'll grow into something bigger than I even imagined. Either way, I am here for the journey, and I hope that you will also join me. Like I said, if this does take off, even in some small way, I do have some ideas for growth, things that we could do, topics that we could talk about. I'd love to bring in other voices, dispatchers, call receivers, past and present, to share their experiences. Maybe even have conversations with officers, firefighters, mental health professionals. Who knows, there might even be games or creative ways that we could make our conversations interactive and fun. And I say that because while the topics we discuss are serious, that does not mean that we can't find moments of levity or connection through shared humor. However, those plans for now stay in my back pocket. So, this channel will evolve as it finds its footing, but no matter where it goes, the heart of it will always be about connection and storytelling. If you have joined me this long for my rambling dissertation, I am grateful to have you here, and I hope that you will join me on the first step of what I hope will be an incredible journey. Like I said, if you're here, I do appreciate you more than I can say. So here is to embracing the uncomfortable and sharing stories, finding connection and conversation, one cup of tea at a time. I hope you're as excited as I am to embark on this journey. So again, if this resonated with you at all, please hit like, subscribe, all those things that people do. Content creation is new to me, so please be patient as I learn and grow about how to work this and get better and smoother at this. But also let me know in the comments if there's something that you're excited about, something you'd like to hear me say. Tomorrow, like I said, will be our first Poetry Thursday, and then No Filter Friday. So I hope that I will see you then. Talk to you later, and take care of yourselves in the meantime.